Hello, this video is regarding my idea for an alchemy clock or an alchemical clock that takes and keeps track of the planets with real scientific data throughout the day. The clock itself would be based on a 24-hour mechanism similar to a military clock, with the exception being that noon would occur at the top and midnight at the bottom. And you'll notice that the outer perimeter here has the hours of the day. The bottom section would be nighttime, and the upper section would be daytime, approximately. And the interesting thing about it is there's a tradition in alchemy where you have alchemical hours, where each hour is about 3.4 hours long. And those are considered planetary hours, where you would perform various operations during those time periods. For example, if you scroll up here, if it was the daytime and you wanted to perform a distillation, you would work under the influence of the planet Mercury. And of course, it may not have any actual scientific merit. It could just be a tradition, but no one would ever know unless we actually tested each planet's effect on the physical reality. Obviously, a planet like or an astrological body like the sun or the moon would definitely have an effect on what you're doing here on Earth, on your chemical processes. So each alchemical hour is 1/7 of a day, and that's why you've got these 7 lines here, and the specific times start there at midnight or 2400 hours, going to around 3:26 a.m. and so forth and so on in these oddball 3.4 hour increments. Now, I can build the mechanism that has the clock and the sections, and the idea is that each little section would light up depending on what was actually in the sky at that time on that specific day. So this data here that you're seeing, these colors are sort of color coded for the planetary bodies, and this is an actual chart of an actual day, tomorrow, September 8th, 2020. Let's look at the actual data where this information would be coming from for this backdrop of a actual mechanical clock. Let's see here. So as you can see, the sun culmination, I was going with the culminations, which is the peak. Another programming could have it where you extend it from the rise to the set time. But just for simplicity for this example, I was going with the culmination, which is where the astronomical body is at its peak. So right here for the sun, it's at its peak in the sky. And of course, this is Sherman, Texas, right? So anywhere you are in the northern hemisphere, it would change. But for central time zone, northern hemisphere, this is pretty decent. So the sun would be at its peak at 1:23 p.m., 13:23. And if I go to my example clock here, you can see 13:23. It occurs in this section here. So I went ahead and highlighted this. Now, if it was the actual clock, that would be an backlit LED on the decorative backdrop behind which an actual 24-hour clock mechanism operates. So it's a combination of digital and electronic input to an LED board with a mechanical operating clock in front of it. That's the design idea anyways. Let's see some other examples here. Take for example Venus. The culmination is at 10:33 a.m. Okay, so it would be peak in the sky at 10:33. If we go over here, it's like, okay, 10:33 occurs right in here, so we highlighted Venus at the same time as the sun. Which, yes, it's in the sky. It'd be at its peak in the sky for Sherman, Texas at this on this day. But the reality is that you could program it differently where it did like a rise to set, in which case it would go from let's see, 3:39 a.m. and so you would have it highlighted all the way from maybe this section. So it really could extend all the way here, sort of depending on how stringent you are on the interference with other planets and such. In terms of the traditional things, you see Saturn down here, which like we've got it here from in this time section of that 1/7 of an hour traditional time section, which I'm sure that's weird to anybody that's never thought of an hour being 3.4 hours or a day being divided into 7 parts. It's kind of odd, but I really like it for when you're doing experiments, because an hour is not long enough really to do anything, but 3.4 hours is a comfortable time frame to do scientific work and write it down and wrap it up. It just seems to be a comfortable pattern for doing actual physical experiments. But like here we have Saturn in this section, so that corresponds with Saturn. Okay, the culmination was about 10:02 p.m. So I just highlighted it in here, right? Saturn. Now, so Saturn and Jupiter, they're real close to one another. You can see that in the sky. They're pretty big objects in the sky. They're bright, and so at this time of night, you can go out at midnight and see both Saturn and Jupiter within close proximity to each other. Of course, the moon is also out, but its culmination, I put its culmination here because if we look over here, the moon, 5:46 a.m., right? So its culmination time was right there. But I could have done like, rise to set, in which case it would have started somewhere around in here, somewhere down there. So at least this way, it would be a clock where if you looked at it, you could say, okay, well, looks like we got a clear shot for, whichever planet to be out and about. And of course, this would change every day. And notice Mercury is not on here. I guess it's behind the sun or somewhere another part of the solar system right now, and it'll come around sooner or later and pop up on the rise and set times of the planets. But it would change every day, right? So if you went to September 16th, for example, and load that, it's a new moon. The moon culmination is at 12:51, which would mean for that day, the moon, you would put this gray highlighted backdrop thing over here in the middle of the day. But it's a new moon, so you're not going to see the moon anyways, but it's there. So if you wanted to do some experiment with gravity, there it is, So anyways, I hope that clarifies kind of what I was aiming for. And like I said, there's these traditional operations for each of these situations, and I would like to test it and see if there's any validity to it, or if it's just some weird tradition from the past. But like, if you wanted to, it's obviously it's not essential for chemistry. I mean, if the only time things would dissolve is if the moon was out, then you would notice when you were fixing your iced tea or something. But anyway, I really like the clock idea, and overall I just wanted to be able to get an objective scientific reality into a sort of tempered format that's not super complicated, to where you could just look at the thing on the wall and be like, hey, Venus is going to be out tonight or this afternoon or whatever. And you can't really disprove something from the past if everybody's on different pages with weird traditions where Sunday represents the sun, and so you think you've got an hour, or Tuesday is representative of Mars, so you do your experiment on a Tuesday. Well, that's just nomenclature. It's not the observable scientific reality. And if we're not all on the same page with an observable scientific reality, then you really can not prove or disprove any of the traditions of the past. So, that is all. Have a good one.